Good evening. A tourism report that's just come to light presents a rosy picture for the industry in the south over the next 5 years. It's based on a survey carried out by the Tourist and Publicity Department midway through last year. As Bernard Buck reports, it comes at a time when tourism here is still very slow.
These are worrying times in places like Queenstown. Some tourist operators believe the numbers of visitors coming to New Zealand could be down by as much as 30%. But for all that, the report's optimistic tone doesn't come as a total surprise. Some tourist people believe they're already glimpsing the light at the end of the tunnel. The report's hope is based largely on two fundamental factors.
Well, we believe that the level of awareness of New Zealand is now very high overseas, and we really think that we're now ready to reap the benefits of a lot of work that's been done in the past and that's currently been carried out. There's indications that we're holding our price levels effectively and that the level of awareness of New Zealand is very high, and the two will come together for us now.
Specifically, the report talks about 48% increase in tourism in the southern area over the next 5 years. With that could come 3,000 new jobs funded mainly from overseas visitors spending. The industry worries whether there'll be enough trained people to cope.
Well, that is of concern to the Tourist Department, because we feel it's essential to gain the maximum benefit from these opportunities, and we are trying to coordinate tourism training throughout the country currently.
The reports predict domestic tourism in the south will experience a further small decline this year before picking up to the levels of 2 years ago.
The transformation of the Cook Strait ferry Arohunga into the cruise ship Islander is well underway in Dunedin. The old colour scheme is disappearing under layers of scaffolding and new paint, and work on the new superstructure has started. Lee Davies with an update.
Great weather and an excellent workforce have contributed to a successful start to the contract. By Easter, the Arohunga should be virtually transformed into the Islander, and the workers may get Easter Sunday off. This morning, the first major piece of the new superstructure was lifted aboard, an operation which involved positioning the crane, the metal structure and the ferry itself. The bow ropes were loosened, and with the help of the tug, the Arohunga was pivoted around to enable the structure to be positioned on the far side of the ship. Eventually, it'll be a shop. The refit of the ferry was to take 50 days, and Sims Engineering, the main contractor, says it'll be finished on time. It's hoped the job will lead to successful tenders for refitting the 2 remaining ferries in Dunedin.
The Postbank ANZ Bonus Bond Centre will remain in Dunedin for at least another year. It's the second stay of execution granted to the bonus bond scheme since the government began reviewing this form of fundraising over a year ago. Postbank operates the Bonus Bond Centre under an agency agreement with a staff of about 90 in Dunedin. Most New Zealanders are proud of our international reputation for dairy products and rugby players. But what's not so well known here is that we're world leaders in producing biogas from waste products. It's that reputation which has brought a group of Swedish industrialists here. Peter Cruikshank found them at Lorneville.
The way Alliance Freezing Works treats waste water from animal processing produces gas, which heats part of the works. And that kind of technology has lured 32 Swedish visitors here. The plant also uses wool scour waste. A system developed by Invermay's John Campbell is here leading the Swedish group. Sweden's reviewing its energy scene and shutting down 5 nuclear reactors by 1995. Here, special bacteria break down the wastes from 20,000 sheep and 500 cattle a day, about what a city the size of Christchurch produces. One of the 4 huge digester tanks has been developed into a producer of methane gas. It's stored in rubber tanks and fed to the fellmongery to fire the wool dryer. The system's so successful, there are plans to double its output. The Swedish group's also looking at other ways of producing biogas at fish factories, cheese factories, poultry farms and sewage treatment plants around the country.
Traffic officers were out in force on the roads today. They weren't out to catch anyone, but rather to raise money. They're cycling the length of the country, seeking funds for the victims of road accidents who've suffered head injuries. Kathy Graham caught up with them as they reached Dunedin.
There are 8 cyclists in the South Island team, each pair riding for an hour at a time, but that's plenty on the hills. Fortunately, they beat the rain into Dunedin today. These riders will meet up with the North Island team in Wellington for the official presentation of the funds they've raised for the New Zealand Head Injury Society. And as well as raising money, the traffic officers are also promoting safety for cyclists, particularly cycle helmets. The campaign's already had its effect in the south. Schools have been promoting it, and at George Street Normal in Dunedin, half the pupils who biked to school this week were wearing helmets, well above the national average of 5%.
Probably the child on the bicycle is 8 times more vulnerable than a person in a car. And that's simply because there's two main problems with children riding bicycles. One is the level of skill that they have often leads them to have accidents. They fall off, they lose control. The second thing is that when they get older, they're riding out in the traffic more, and that brings them into conflict with car versus bike accidents, which is really no contest. That's why when it comes to injuries, we find a lot, over half of the children involved in bicycle injuries have reasonably serious head injuries.
Bike shops have been doing a brisk business, but safety experts warn not all helmets are a good buy. Consumer tests are a guide for customers, and several New Zealand makes are on the market, including this one.
It would give you as much protection as you could get with anything on your head other than a big steel cage, probably.
Sam Gluck's had a helmet as long as he's had a bike.
I live near the motorway that comes down. When I ride past, buses come past, and I'm scared I may fall off.
Do you feel scared when you're riding your bike?
Well, sort of when I'm going down steep hills, because a couple of days ago I lost my brakes going down Pacific Street, which is the steep street.
And what happened?
Well, I just wrecked my shoes.
Jai was lucky. Each year about 30 cyclists are killed on the roads. 3/4 of them die from head injuries. Most of them are children. Last October, Fergus Lang very nearly became one of those statistics. He was knocked from his bike and fell under a truck.
Bus tried to cut in front of me, around about here, knocked me off the bike. The bike went this way, and I fell under the back wheel of the truck and got run over. The ambulance were here within 4 minutes, and I was in hospital in 10 minutes. They did the open heart surgery.
What did they rate your chances?
Virtually zero. Dad was told that I wouldn't survive. They told him the truth.
That he did survive was little short of a miracle. But although Fergus is recovering well from his injuries, the horror of the accident is hard to forget.
I don't think I can ever get the courage to get back on a bike on the road again. The chances are probably pretty low that I'll have another accident, but to me it's just not worth the risk.
Now to a couple of pastimes where helmets are an absolute necessity. We're heading off to Coronet Peak, where the new sports of mountain biking and paragliding have been holding their first national championships. For the spectators, both presented some spectacular action. pretty magnificent. That item was compiled by Mike Lynch. And we leave you tonight with some of the South's newest inhabitants, the tiny, harmless jellyfish that have taken up residence in Lake Hayes. These ones were in Dunedin for some scientific research. Temperatures now at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Half Moon Bay sunny 18, Invercargill cloudy and 16 with a high tomorrow 17. Gore overcast and 19, Balclutha overcast and 20, Dunedin cloudy and 19, high tomorrow 18. Palmerston sunny 20, Oamaru fine at 18, Ranfurly partly cloudy 25, Lumsden 19 degrees, Queenstown partly cloudy 24, the high yet again to Alexandria, partly cloudy and 26. Finally, Te Anau is sunny and 22 degrees. We'll be back same time tomorrow night. Good night.